Welcome to this week's Iraq Briefing, where we cover the top events shaping Iraq today. I'm Eric Gustafson.
نعم عمر نداوي.
So we're going to plunge into the top topic. Kurdistan's oil fields are under attack. We'll be talking about that today. I do want to encourage you, if you have Iraq in your story, stick around to the end of the video. We have a really important announcement for you. All right, so with Kurdistan's oil fields under attack, today we're discussing a serious escalation in violence. Since the end of June, many civilian, military, and economic sites in the Kurdistan region have come under attack. The violence escalated in a rather unprecedented way this week, with key oil production sites being hit, and also an IDP camp. Omar, can you bring us up to speed on what's going on?
Yeah, so the wave of attacks, as you mentioned, began on June 30th with several rocket and drone attacks that targeted the Kirkuk airport, targeted Peshmerga positions in Suleymaniye, as well as an IDP camp in Duhok. And then the attacks continued for another week. This time, a usual target, the Erbil International Airport, and additional Peshmerga positions. The real escalation against the oil industry came this week on July 14th with drone attacks targeting the Khormala oil field, which is part of the giant Kirkuk complex. It's one of the three domes of the Kirkuk oil field that is operated by the Kar group within the Kurdistan region. Then there were attacks on other oil fields, Sarseng, Ain Sifni, Tawki, Peshkhabir, and others. It was about a dozen drone attacks that hit all of these half a dozen oil fields within the span of the last 72 hours. And the damage was quite noticeable. Several oil companies have suspended operations. What we read is that about 200,000 barrels per day worth of oil production have been suspended, and that's out of a total production of the Kurdistan region of about 280,000 barrels per day. There were no attacks today, but the damage is already done.
I mean, that's terrible. That's terrible for the country of Iraq, terrible for its economy, for its people. So, what do we know in terms of who's likely behind these attacks? I mean, a number of our viewers and myself have suspicions, but tell us what we know so far about who's likely involved.
So the usual suspect in attacks like this are Iran-backed militias that are trying to intimidate the Kurdistan regional government into doing something or the other. No group has claimed responsibility. Officials within the KRG have pointed fingers at the militias. The Iraqi government is investigating the attacks. That's usually not going to lead to anything, at least not to publicly released results. And people close to the militias have been trying to point blame away from the militias, saying that we're not involved in this. Maybe it's Israel trying to muddy the waters and put the blame on us. So we still don't know. The attacks, again, have some of the usual fingerprints of the militias, but in today's Middle East, you can never be 100% certain.
So, there have been, militias carrying out drone attacks over the years. What's different this time?
Yeah, so I mean, the Kurdistan region's energy sector is not new to attacks. Fields like the Khormor gas field in Chamchama, that's between Suleimania and Kirkuk, has been repeatedly attacked over the years, usually with rockets, just to deliver a message, as they say. Damage has been limited. I think there was one incident in which the attacks led to a disruption in production, brief disruption in production. But this time we saw a concentrated attack targeting oil fields, about half a dozen oil fields, operated by half a dozen international oil companies. And it was a wave of attack that was unprecedented in its depth, in its reach within the Kurdistan region geographically, in its scope and its impact. We've never seen a situation where basically more than two-thirds of the Kurdistan region's oil production is knocked out in a matter of days. And of course, this is not the suspension of production is not directly a result of the attacks, of like damage inflicted during an attack, but also some oil companies whose fields have not been attacked, they just suspended operations out of concerned that their facilities would be attacked, their workers could be killed and or harmed, and that's not something that an oil company wants to deal with. So again, unusual scope, unusual reach, unusual impact, and we're also seeing, I think this is an interesting thing, the a really wide range of targets that this campaign has encompassed. I mean, yes, the latest focus is on oil fields, but the attack on Kirkuk airport is unusual. That's an Iraqi government facility. I didn't also mention that there were attempts to attack the Beiji oil refinery complex in Salahuddin province. There were 10 drones that Iraqi security forces shot down in the early stages of this operation. Also, there were attacks on the Peshmerga positions, on the Peshmerga forces, specifically the Unit 70 or the 70 Force, which is the PUK wing of the Peshmerga. And I think most Iraq watchers know that there are better relations between the PUK Peshmerga, and the Iraqi militias. The relationship is not as hostile or antagonistic as it is with the KDP, the other ruling party in Kurdistan. So all of these things are unusual. The intensity, the range of targets, and the I think the intent to do damage is what's new here.
So Omar, I want to kind of take a step back and like think in terms of the big picture. We just dropped a video about the conflict between Israel and Iran. Remarkably, Iraq has not gotten pulled into that conflict. The militias did not, carry out attacks that pulled Iraq into that conflict. Yet here we have a case where if these Iran-backed militias are involved, they're carrying out unprecedented attacks on multiple targets, civilian and military sites, even an IDP camp. The attacking the ability of the country to produce oil, which is vital for its revenue, for its governance, for its people. And what I mean, I'm just trying to struggle here. I have suspicions, but I want you to explain what could be the potential motivations and implications of this.
I mean, it's really, this one is a difficult nut to crack. I'm still not certain what the motivation is. Clearly, to harm the KRG in some way, but to what end? That's not exactly clear. If it was a tactic to push the KRG to accept a new deal on revenue and oil production, well, yeah, the KRG and Baghdad signed the deal earlier this week. It was released on Thursday, but it's also a counterproductive tactic, because while you are forcing the KRG now, or let's say you have pushed the KRG to accept the idea of delivering its oil to the federal government, well, the oil production now is shut down, and the costs of production and transportation, which negotiators in Baghdad have been complaining also about that they're too high. Well, they're going to even rise higher, because now insurance costs, reconstruction costs, damage, just simply repairing the damage to the infrastructure that was struck by these drones, that's going to inflate the cost. And who's going to pay for that? It's going to be the Iraqi treasury. It's going to be the Iraqi public. So that doesn't make a lot of sense. It could also be an attempt to embarrass Prime Minister Soudani and make him look bad. Notably this week, Prime Minister Soudani was sitting with the executives from an American oil company, HKN, after they signed a deal to develop the Himreen oil field, which is within the federally administered Iraq, part of Iraq. And that was just hours after the company's oil field in the Kurdistan region was struck by a drone. So this is a really bizarre situation. I'm not sure what they're getting at. There is one thing that I think we can be fairly sure of, is that this is potentially a turning point in the rules of the game. This is different from the usual kind of like slap on the wrist that the militias have used in previous episodes to push political actors into towards making a certain decision, whether it's related to government formation or whatever it is. This is different for sure, and we'll see what the reaction of the Kurdish parties, of the KRG, is going to be over the coming days and weeks. I doubt that things can go back to a normal 100%.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think you make a really good point. It seems like in the past, the militias would carry out attacks to show their capability of doing far worse. This time, they just went to doing far worse. They,
Yeah.
that's not good. And the fact that you still don't have a monopoly of force in Iraq. You have the government with its security forces, but then these militias that seem to operate outside of any command and control. It's not good. Are they just in their pursuit of making money in the new Iraq? Are they now using the use of force because they can somehow to create leverage and pressure and try to get results that serve their economic interests as militias?
Well, I mean, I think that's unfortunately that's consistent with their mode of operations since the end of, the war with ISIS. These militias have become or returned to being what they were initially created to be as armed factions that are good at using force to maximize political and economic gains for themselves, for their leadership, and for their allies. That's what they used to be, before the war with ISIS, and that's what they returned to on steroids after the war with ISIS. And this is, I don't think it's inconsistent at all with their mentality, with their policy, with their strategy.
Yeah, yeah. And at great cost to Iraq. Well, thank you so much, Omar, for that analysis. So, for those of you stuck around, thanks for sticking around. If you have Iraq in your story, if you care about Iraq, you have a great opportunity to help right now. Uh, Epic is building a team for the Iraqi Children's 5K. Last year, we had a team of 54. So, this year, we're going to try to have a team of 55 or more. So, please take a look. We'll include a link down below. But sign up. Also, you don't have to join Epic's team, join another team, build your own team. All of this benefits the Iraqi Children's Foundation, which is a phenomenal organization. You can check out their website. We'll include a link to them as well. Check out their programs from Mosul to Baghdad, recently in uh, Sulaymaniyah, with the project that we just partnered with the Iraqi Children's Foundation on, the Summer of Hope. So take a look and please consider joining. You can run, walk. You can join us in Washington, D.C. at Rock Creek Park in September for the run, or you can also participate from wherever you are remotely. So I hope you can join us. So thank you so much for joining this edition of your Iraq briefing. Follow us at enablingpeace.org. Follow our weekly Isham reports. Sure to follow us via your socials and share this with others that might be interested in keeping up with what's happening in Iraq. Thank you so much. Maslama.
Masalama.